I'm really excited and welcome Ryan to Profitable Pursuits. So welcome, Ryan.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I am so excited to share your brilliance. You have been in my world for years now, and I really, as I was sharing with you before we hit record, think you are a pillar in the community for people who are, entering entrepreneurship world and also teaching them how to grow and scale. You always come to mind, so I'm really excited to share your advice with our audience.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm really excited to be here. It's been a wild ride for sure. But I can definitely share some of my experiences, things that have worked, things that haven't worked. I mean, I've definitely run businesses that were not profitable. So we could talk about it from both angles.
Sure, super cool. So just in case someone is new to you, why don't we start with like introduce yourself, tell us what you do, tell us what you've done, give us the
Sure.
lowdown.
Yeah. So currently I run a company called the Connection Agency. So the agency is a sales and marketing consulting company where we work with clients to really from, finding strangers on the internet to signing clients, from A to Z. So that's really our superpowers. We have a really cool social media CRM, our social media prospecting tool. That's kind of our flagship offer, is helping people connect with new people. So as you shared, you said this before we hit record, conversations are my jam, right? Like I really love to focus on how do we drive revenue in our businesses through relationships and through connection, versus your more transactional business, right? So I came from a very traditional corporate background, started selling radio advertising when I was 21 years old. And it was all about the relationships. It was all about who you knew. And so then when I got into online world, which was gosh, back in 2018, it was like this whole concept of like, let's try to talk to as few people as possible. It just really blew my mind. I'm like, why are we doing this? So I'm really focused on human to human connection and generating revenue that way. I started my entrepreneurial career as a sales coach. That's where Cheryl and I met. So I was teaching sales to new entrepreneurs, right? Really women who are really good at what they do, but struggling to like actually sign clients as like freelancers and service providers. That wound up, growing exponentially, which was exciting and fun, and led to a business partnership. Where we ran a sales training company for online entrepreneurs. And when that business partnership went south, I took a pause from the sales game and ran a sales or a women's leadership organization that still exists. It's kind of become more of like my passion and my heart, and the agency's kind of been my front runner. So I've had a few iterations of business, but I've really learned that sales, marketing, how to create that connection is really what I'm well known for and what I'm really good at helping people do.
Yeah. I'm gonna sidetrack for a minute. I remember one of your trainings and you said someone told me to stop speaking so fast, and I told them that's just what I do. And why
Mm-hmm.
I love that is because everyone's gonna try to tell you what to do or not to do, and you just have to be you.
Yeah,
Right.
100%. And so that's the thing I talk fast, I talk with my hands, and some people find it distracting and they don't like it. And like at one point, honestly, Cheryl, I was considering like I should probably hire a public speaking coach to get rid of the ums and the ahs and the hands because it's distracting. But I learned like that's me. Like you're not going to enjoy working with me if my snark and my sarcasm and my hands bother you. We probably shouldn't work together anyway.
I just loved your response to that, and it just sticks out to me so much. Instead of being like, okay, like I'll take it, you're like, no, this is me, and this is how we're going to move forward.
Totally.
And I think that's so important, like in the online world, non-online world, like just own who you are, but like not everyone is for everyone, and being okay with it.
Yes.
And I kind of transitioned that into like what I learned from you a lot was like just get in DMs, just communicate, and who cares if it doesn't work.
Yes. Yeah, I mean that's I'm famous for saying, and famous is which one is it? I don't know. Conversations equals relationships, and relationships equals clients, right? The client acquisition. How do we sign more clients is one of the biggest challenges most businesses have. Often leads to their profitability or lack thereof, right? Is their ability to bring new business in consistently. But it all starts with human to human connection, right? It all starts with talking to people and building relationships. And we get so caught up in this idea of like, well, I only talk to the right people, or I don't know who my ideal client is, or I don't know who has the problem that I solve. And in the beginning, and I say beginning, I mean, I'm talking your first couple $100,000, it doesn't matter. Right? It really doesn't, because the amount of business that I have done over the past 5 years with people who I met years ago and are just now doing business with is crazy town. Right. And we are so taught to like right here, right now, who's going to buy something from me today, that we're not thinking about that. So yeah, I mean, just go talk to people. You're going to learn, you're going to practice, you're going to build relationships, you're going to figure out who you like to work with and who you don't, really, really quickly. So every time, I've obviously reiterated 3 or 4 times now, every time I go back to the basics of I need to go talk to people, because I want to hear the questions that they ask. I want to hear when I talk about what I do, how do they respond to it? So then I can market to them more effectively, or I can create offers that speak to their specific problems. But to assume that I would know that without having those conversations is kind of wild.
Cool. I love that. Let's rewind a bit. How would you define the difference between like marketing and sales? Because I feel like they get so intertwined. I mean, they are a little bit, but how would you differentiate the two?
Yeah. So marketing is speaking to a broader audience, and it is meant to get people's attention, right? So to me, marketing is that how do I get people's attention? How do I get them to, come into my world to begin with? Whereas sales is about conversion, right? Sales is the conversation that we're having when somebody's closer to making a decision. So marketing is, I don't really know who you are, or now I'm getting to know you. But at some point in time, we have to go from like generic marketing message to nuanced sales conversation. So to me, that's the difference between the two. Marketing is let's stand on the corner with our megaphone and talk about what we do. Sales is, okay, cool. We got these 20 people's attention. Now we need to build, we need to figure out which of those 20 people are qualified, which of those 20 people have the problem that we solve, which of those 20 people do I want to work with, right? So it's kind of that filtering system.
Awesome. Where do you think people are losing revenue opportunities? Is it in the marketing or the sales?
It's both. I think most people are putting too much emphasis on their marketing to sell for them. So
Mm.
it's the when it how do I want to say this eloquently? Because we're like, well, but I've been posting on social media, or I've been running ads, but it's not converting the way that I want it to. And it's like, okay, cool. What does the sales process look like? And they're like, well, they just did this thing. And then if we want them to just click and buy, which it happens, but we put so much emphasis on the marketing and the general, and we don't get into the nuance enough. So I think the lion's share of people's problem is they're not getting the right people into sales conversations. So their marketing is broken. Again, there's a percentage of people that are like, I book sales calls all the time and I get a ton of no's, right? We have a mutual friend who that's a problem. Like I remember when Shelby Fowler came to me, she was like, I had 20 sales calls and nobody said yes. And I was like, how did you book 20 sales calls? And she's like, nobody said yes. But most people, it's the lack of sales calls on their calendar, which starts with the marketing, what people are seeing. Typically we can fix the sales problem. So, but again, there are those people that are like, oh no, we have plenty of sales conversations. We're just not converting. But most folks, they want their marketing to do so much of the heavy lifting for them. And they're not willing to get in there and have the conversations.
So true. I love to share like tips and tricks and like what you would like credit. I mean, I'm just gonna go back to your first business, which was
Yeah.
like a booming, at least on the outsider's view, a booming success, the amount of transformations you had, the amount of people in your world who are like raving fans because they received that transformation. So if we even like look at just that one currently or your current business, what would you be like, this is such a success, or I have this profitability or personally profitable because of, like, what would you credit that to?
The relationships. That first business was so profitable. It was profit. It wasn't so profitable. It grew so quickly because I stayed in that relationship building role for probably longer than I should have, to be honest. Because then it created a dependency on me, right? But like it was people, I was willing to talk to anybody about anything. Like I served the crap out of people, that. Like I gave away, I mean, like I would teach on anything. You want me to do a live training on it? You want me to lead a launch? I mean, like I did not follow your regular, like teach the what, not the how. I was willing to teach all of it. And the reason was because as humans, like information's not a problem, right? There's nothing I felt compelled to gate, like, oh, I'm only going to teach you this if you pay me. Because again, you could go read a book and learn how to sell. You're having a hard time because you need some level of coaching, support, accountability, hand-holding, a second set of eyes. There's a whole lot that you need to be successful. So I mean, I gave and I gave and I gave. And so those are the two things is I gave away all the information fully trusting that people would pay me for the hand holding through the process, that they would want to skip through the DIYing of it. Right. And then two, I was, like I said, I was very accessible. I was not that person who was like, oh, my business does, a couple $100,000 a year. I can't be bothered to talk to you. I was like, no, I'll talk to you. Like, what do you need? What's going on? Of course I'll help. And so doing those two things, I think, set the stage for that business to do well. But me being able to reiterate so often and so quickly is because of that foundation, hands down.
Relationships. And I was a part of that world. I had an opportunity to experience it, and more like even the community that you built, it was literally Ryann fans.
Yeah.
But in the best way, because they were receiving the transformations. Did those relationships help you where you are today?
Totally. So I would say the audience didn't transfer too much to the Social Sellers Academy brand, but the Be in the Room brand and the Connection Agency, I mean, 70-80% of our business were previous clients or people who were part of that community right now. We haven't even really tapped into a new market in over 2 years, because we've just been working the relationships and the contacts that we have. So across all of our social platforms, I have about 25,000 connections. And so we just started adding new people to our world in the past 60 days.
That's wild.
Right?
That is such a testament to what you offer and what you do. Why do you think those relationships stay with you so long?
Because I actually care. So some of it, I've learned that I have a very good memory. And our most basic human need, and Cheryl, you've heard me say this a million times, is feel seen, heard, and understood. And I am very good at that. So when somebody sends me a DM, and the fact that I remember the conversation that we had a year and a half ago, and I say, oh yeah, you were doing this, did that change? Like, that connection is really important. So I think that they have stayed with me. Well, A, I'm good at what I do and I get people results. Clearly they wouldn't continue to follow me if I didn't. But B, it's like, it is genuine. I'm not like, when I ask somebody, tell me about your business and how you got into it, I'm not just asking that question to start a conversation to see if I can sell you something. Like, hearing those types of stories, actually, like, it's so fascinating to me, the paths that we walk and how we got here, and entrepreneurship and our brains and all the things. That I love people's stories, and that's genuine, and people can feel that, right? Like, I loved your story where you were like, no, I'm building this business. I don't really intend to leave my full-time job anytime soon. It's great. Here's all the reasons why. And you owned that so beautifully, where so many people were like, gotta quit. And you're like, no, we're just stacking cash over here to figure out what happens next. And clearly you've made those moves and you've moved around and you've done the things, which is really incredible. But, knowing people's stories and being able to make that connection is what has created those long-term relationships for me.
One of my favorite parts about the internet is that you have an opportunity to meet people that you wouldn't normally get to meet, right? You get to experience their stories or hear, and I think when we share like some of those exciting things that we're working on, it inspires others to like dream bigger, shoot bigger. Can you talk a little bit about the platform you're building out and like share insight into what that is and what that looks like?
Yeah. So vision for us, for the Connection Agency, is I actually see us eventually at some point in time, we will draw the line between sales and marketing. And we will have like an entire sales training, sales consulting arm, and then there will be the marketing arm of the business. We are launching a podcast called Content and Conversations, because those are the two things that I think, change the world. And so the marketing side will really focus on content and conversations, and the sales side. So we're bringing in software and technology to do that now. So we are white labeling software. I'm not trying to make anybody believe that I developed anything. So we have a piece of software that we use with our clients called Connect Chat, which is a social media prospecting tool. So it allows you to manage all of your connections across all of your social platforms and make sure you get into more conversations, which is a very natural play for me.
Wow.
And then we're also going to go ahead and build out the marketing side. So we'll create our own white label of high level, because a lot of our clients come to us and either they don't have a home base where all their landing pages, email lists, sales pipelines live, or, it's spread out. They're like, oh, my landing page is over here in ClickFunnels, and we're managing sales contacts in Zoho, and, we're not, we're doing our calendar stuff. So that's really why we're bringing that together. I never in a million years would have thought, like, somebody was asking me about my tech stack the other day, and I'm like, who am I that I have a tech stack? Like, what is happening in the world? But I'll tell you why I did that from profitability standpoint. I know that as soon as there's software involved in my business, that the multiplier of my business, should I ever sell, catapults, right? If it's all based on, if it's just a service-based business, you're thinking 2 or 3x is what you can sell for. As soon as you put technology, monthly recurring revenue, those types of things, your multiplier is easily going to go to, 8 to 9x, at least in the research that I have done. So that was one play. And then two, it was really around, why would I keep dumping people into other people's marketing funnels? Right. So we were just white labeling our, right. We were white labeling our, social media CRM platform. And so I would just tell people like, hey, sign up here and bring it back to me and I'll set it up for you, because I didn't want to deal with all of it. Well, their white label program is now really good, so I don't have to deal with all of it, which is really amazing. But all of that to say that I did that because every time I was like, hey, or go buy this, you got dumped into that person's marketing funnel and you got sold all of their different things. And I don't necessarily worry about competition or any of those things, Cheryl, but it was it makes more sense if I can keep people in my ecosystem. I can create repeat buyers. There's more and more that I can do. I can create community here. I can create connection here, which to me is really what breeds profitability and sustainability, right? So that was the reason we made the decision to white label software and pull that into the ecosystem.
And then also, when you bring people into a software that you fully understand, you're fully embedded in, you don't have to learn 6 softwares, or you don't have to understand the influence of oh, they're using ClickFunnels, I need to know this little weird off thing, or they're using Jobby, so I need to use this little weird off thing.
Yep.
That helps reduce it. Let's dive into, you talked about selling and building businesses that can sell. I find that so important. Just fun fact, when you were making the switch from your first online business I saw you in into the partnership, I was shocked that you didn't sell that first business.
Yeah.
Was it ever a thought, or was it perhaps just not an option? Perhaps something we can't talk about.
No, it's nothing. I don't think it was a thought. I don't know at the time if I was busy savvy enough to know that, to think about that. It never occurred to me at that point in time to sell it.
I remember sitting in the back, obviously seeing oh, this partnership, whatever, thought it was super cool. And I'm like, she has to be selling this business. Who is buying this business? Because you had a lot of assets built out. A lot.
A lot.
Wow. So I wanna, viewers listening, always think about your business consult.
Yes.
Building businesses, you can sell them.
Well, and now, and I know that, right? Everything we do now is done through that lens. Not so actually I have a client who, and a friend who her whole thing is that it's built to, she doesn't say built to sell, built to exit. And so whether you're selling or your time, right? So at that point in time, so when we started that partnership, Cheryl, the intention was that she was going to run her business, I was going to run mine, and we were going to run this one together. So the intention was never to shut that business down. But when the sales training company got so big so fast, it needed a full-time leader and it needed to be one of us. And so she asked me to do that. And so, I was so consumed with that. And then I was still doing service delivery for all the clients that I just sold stuff to, that I just couldn't, my brain, it didn't occur to me at the time. It was super heavy, on me. I don't think I had my frameworks well built out. I mean, I was just, I was 18 months into entrepreneurship when this happened. Right. So, obviously now we take a very different approach. Everything we build is built with the idea of how does it not depend on me? Even this podcast that we're launching, I almost didn't launch it because I was like, I don't want to be a personal brand. I don't want people to feel well, okay, I bought something from the connection agency. I want access to Ryann Dowdy. Because frankly, at this point in the game, the work that we're doing, I'm not the expert at all of it. Messaging and words, yes. But if you want to figure out how to use the technology, if you're having a hard time setting up your Connect chat, it is not me. I don't set up my own Connect chat. So you need to talk to somebody else. Same thing with our funnel building. We do funnel building and email marketing and all of that. You don't want to talk to me. I'm not the one building the funnel, right? You want to talk to Jessica. She's the one building the funnel. So anyway, and I think about that all the time. And so I know who my number 2 will be. I know what dollar amount I need to be at to hire that person. And I'm well aware it's probably going to take me 18 to 24 months to train that person to be able to do what I do in the business, but it's a very clear path to get there.
I love that. I love that we can share, and I want people to come in and listen. Like, one, build a business, even if you never have an intention to sell it or to
Right,
exit or do
exactly.
whatever, but build it that way. And one of the first things people are going to look at is your profitability. And
Yes.
then they're just going to multiply it by two, three, four, or five. And
Right.
that's really what your business is worth. So when people want to run all these expenses that don't make sense, you're really shooting yourself in the foot,
Totally.
like on a personal profitability level, but also your long term if you ever choose to exit.
Yep. Yeah. And again, an exit could simply mean you don't have to operate the business, right? You still collect paycheck, you still drive strategy, but you don't have to be the primary operator. Um, that's still technically an exit, right? If it doesn't need you to run
Absolutely.
it. So
For sure. So cool. Well, you've done this, but one of my favorite questions I like to ask people is if you had to build the business you have today or the business you had in the past in half the amount of time. So your revenue in half the amount of time and your personal profitability, how would you do it?
ooh, great question. How would I do it? Somebody was like, I got to start over and I got to do it fast. In any business, the first thing I would do is I would sell something. I would work backwards, right? What's the number that I need? What's my profitability? And then what do I need to sell to get there? And I think we do that totally opposite, right? Like we're like, oh, this is fun. I want to do this. And they're like, oh, I think I can charge $5,000 for this. And we never really think about, okay, I want to make $1 million a year. I know in a service-based business that the average profitability is, somewhere depending on what you do, around 40-ish%. Some people are more, some people less, but let's say 40 on average. Cool. So $1 million. I need 400,000 of that to be profit. So now I need to make $600,000, right? Okay. How do I want to do that? How many employees do I want to have? Well, if you're like, well, I don't want 100 employees, not that you would in a $1 million business, but you get what I'm saying, right? We're like, okay, cool. What can I deliver with me and 2 full-time team members? Because that's my question, that gets me to, $1 million that gives me the profitability to operate at 40% and then work backwards into that. So, like right now, our flagship offer is a $2,000 offer, so I'm well aware that in order, at a $2,000 offer that I need to sell that to, 40 people a month, right? To get to 80,000. So just under $1 million. So to sell that to 40 people a month, but I also know that I can actually sell that to probably double that in a month with only having to hire one more employee to do client service. Right. So, okay, cool. It makes sense. Let's go. So that's the first thing I would do is let's do math backwards. And then I would sell it first to the people that right? That's the upside of starting over is going out to all the people that because if you've been talking to people and you're doing the things, there's very likely 100 people right now in your ecosystem that will buy that thing if you go build a relationship. I'm working on this new thing. I'd love to share it with you. I think it's a great fit because start with your warm audience. You're going to get there faster. And then if you're dealing with a cold audience, if you're like, okay, cool, I don't have a big warm audience. What do I do with my cold audience? I would sell it one-to-one first. Always sell one-to-one first. I know that's counterintuitive because you're like, well, I got to get there in half the time. I should be selling one to many. If you don't know what you're selling, well, if you know the problem that you solve, selling one to many is never going to work, right? You need to go sell one-to-one. You need to hear the objections. You need to have the conversations. You need to figure out why people are coming to you, why they're buying their stuff. Do that for 90 days and then figure out a one-to-many sales mechanism. So whether it's a workshop, whether it's a webinar, challenge, launch, whatever you do, doesn't matter. That's what I would do. So I would figure it out. I would work backwards into what do I need to sell? How much do I need to sell it for? How many people are like, what are the costs go into this? I would start selling it to my warm audience first, and then I would go sell it to a cold audience one-to-one first, and then one to many. Once, I sold it to 6, 8, 10 people. You don't have to sell it to 100 people before you go one to many, but go sell it to 6, 8, 10 people one-to-one before you try to go to one to many.
I love that. Why I enjoy talking to you so much is you bring the strategy side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm like here for some woo, but it's all strategy and numbers driven, right? It's not like I feel like this or this may be hard, but like go do
Yep.
it. Like it's strategy driven, and that excites my accounting heart a little bit that we
But
brought up.
I do marry the well really well. The part of this that I didn't say is that like whatever offer you pick, you have to love the offer. Because I can give you the strategy. You can take that strategy, but if you're selling something that you don't love, you're not excited about, you're not behind, you're not bought into, that's the woo, right? Like the strategy that I just shared with you only works when you're bought in, you're excited, you love it, you are confident about the results that you get people and the transformation that you provide. I think that's probably, Cheryl, why I was so successful, is like in my heart of hearts, I truly believe that every business owner needs to know how to sell. And if they do not figure out that skill, that their business will never grow. And like, you can't convince me otherwise, you know? And there's going to be somebody who's like, I never took a sales call in my life. I made $1 billion. Great. You cannot convince me otherwise. You know, for you, profitability and accounting, like in your heart of hearts, there's no reason to have a business if you ain't making any money, right?
Amen.
Like, believe that, you know, to your
Okay.
core. So I
Mhm.
think that that's the woo piece that, you know, we haven't talked about here, is you can't just pull something off the shelf and go sell it. If you don't have that level of conviction, because it's
So
hard.
then create the strategy for something you stand behind.
100%.
1001%.
Right.
So cool. Where can people find out more about you? Where can they like hop in your world? Talk to me about all the things.
Yeah. So we are, again, this is kind of a newer iteration. So connectchat.io is kind of our demo of like the software and stuff itself. If you just want to hang out and get to know us, Facebook is my primary platform. I'm Ryann Dowdy on Facebook. I have a creator profile so you can follow or send a friend request. I love connecting with people. So that's where you'll find most of our content currently. And then hopefully I can get you, we have a new freebie that we just put together, a new PDF that's like our conversation starter. So we talk about how to start conversations without being a weirdo. So we'll make sure, Cheryl, that you guys get that PDF by the time you publish this. I don't have it yet, but I know it's being made. It's very pretty. But it just gives you kind of scripts and examples and ways to start conversations in a genuine way. So we'll make sure you guys have that tool too.
Cool. And we will link it all down below. Ryann, I want to thank you so much for hanging out with us. I really urge everyone hop in Ryan's world. You will certainly learn something. Even if you don't invest in anything, you will learn a ton. Go out there and make those relationships.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Cool.